Record. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Conversations with Cal. I'm your host, Cal Denicky. I'm joined by a reoccurring guest, Mr. David Bracey, checking in from St. Louis. How you doing, David?
Man, always a pleasure. Glad to be back on the pod, back on the episode, back in the conversation. Let's get it.
And I see you got the mic today, so it's sounding great. And we've got a lot of NBA chatter we want to get to. Um, I want to throw it to you first, David. Warriors Kings game 7 yesterday. Steph Curry put on a performance for the ages, dropped a 50 burger, and we knew that series was going to be fun. Tell me a little bit about what you thought of that game 7, because that was something extremely special.
I mean, incredible, iconic, incandescent. I mean, I can't believe what I witnessed. Game 7, Steph Curry, most points in a game 7 all time, a 50 piece, all flats, lemon pepper, extra crispy. It was unbelievable the work he was putting in out there. And I mean, they needed it. I believe Clay and Wiggins were 9 for 30 something from the field. I mean, Curry took almost half their shots, and thank God they were going in. And it was truly a clinic. I mean, he wasn't just doing it from outside like we're used to seeing all the circus shots. He was nice at the rim. He was relentless. It was vintage, classic, prime time Curry. And I loved every second of it. I gotta say. I mean, the Kings were a great story, but the Warriors,
And he put up 38 shots. And we think of Steph Curry as this guy who obviously changed the game of basketball forever with his three-point shooting, and every kid who steps on a court wants to be Curry. But what the kids fail to see sometimes is how much he moves around, how much passing he does, and just the movement off the ball. So going into that game yesterday, what were your original thoughts, knowing that the Warriors had a terrible road record this year, but knowing they have the resume they do with the 4 championships with that nucleus? What did you think going into that game, and how did it progress throughout?
I gotta be honest, going into the game, I was very skeptical. I mean, the Warriors have really struggled on the road this year. That is far from a secret. They were absolutely embarrassed on their home floor in game 6. So I really wasn't sure what version of the Warriors we were going to see come out and take the floor for that game 7. Uh, all credit in the world to the Kings. I mean, they showed up, they met the tempo and the intensity. Their crowd was behind them, but sometimes, when you get in the way of an immovable force, you just get ran over. And that's what happened. That's what happened. I mean, Steph Curry was a force of nature yesterday, and not for him. I mean, the beam would probably still be lit in Sacramento. I'll say that much.
And I picked the Kings going into that game 7. I just thought they're going to take this at home, and I just failed to realize the championship DNA that the Warriors have and how many big games they've been in, and they're not afraid of the big moment. And it showed. Kayvon Looney had a huge game, 20 plus boards. We got to talk about him a little bit.
Big man.
Big fella was doing work. And I think he's going to be huge in this next series. And we got to give all the credit in the world to the Kings. What a phenomenal season. What a story. I really hope they can build on this for next year, because hopefully this is the start to something special, similar to the Warriors back in the 2013 days, as Steph and Clay were starting to make a push, and you could kind of see it right before Steve Kerr took over there.
Yeah, I think the Kings are on the cusp of something. Mike Brown has got a good group of guys in Sacramento, and I'm curious to see what they do this off season. But their core, their nucleus is really strong and relatively young. So I think they'll definitely be back. They'll definitely be back.
And so looking forward to Lakers, Warriors, round 5, Steph Curry versus LeBron. This is something that we are lucky to have in the second round, because for all those years, 4 straight years consecutive, from 15, 16, 17, 18, we saw that matchup, and it was almost guaranteed going into those playoffs. We knew it was going to be Cavs Warriors. Now, LeBron with the Lakers going to see Steph and the Warriors. We're in for a treat. So what are your early thoughts on this series, with both styles being pretty contrasting, with the Lakers more ground and pound, down low, physicality. We all know what the Warriors do from behind the arc. So what are you kind of seeing in that series from an early perspective?
Some of the things I'm going to be looking forward to or looking for in that series, it's definitely, I mean, obviously what everybody's looking forward to in any kind of series against Anthony Davis, what version of him is going to show up. If the version of Anthony Davis that shows up in this series against the Warriors is, playing to the level of a Curry, of a LeBron, I think the Lakers are going to be a real problem for the Warriors. Kevon Looney's going to have his work cut out for him. Another thing I'm going to be watching for is the pace of this game. Both the Lakers and the Warriors like to get out and run, and it's very interesting. The Warriors were the worst free throw shooting team in the NBA statistically when it comes to attempts per game. The Lakers on the opposite side of that spectrum, they shoot the most free throws a game. So hopefully the Warriors can keep themselves out of early foul trouble, or I think it's going to put them in a very early hole. And it can be a really insurmountable deficit to try to climb out of when you're down in Staples against LeBron. And Steph knows what that's like. Clay knows what that's like. They're all very familiar with these guys. They're familiar with Anthony Davis, not necessarily in a Lakers uniform, but they've definitely seen him in the postseason before in his time in New Orleans. So there's a lot of merging storylines. I'm very curious to see who the Lakers put on Curry. If I had to bet money, it'd probably be Reeves. But I could see some Vanderbilt getting thrown in there as well, see if his length can bother Curry. And I'm going to be curious to see who LeBron's guarding. Kevon Looney's no joke. He's going to really put Anthony Davis to the test on keeping him off of the boards. And LeBron's going to have to be smart and strategic, and he's going to have his eyes everywhere because, Draymond's going to be scheming, Clay's going to be cutting. And for the love of God, I wish he wouldn't be, but Jordan Poole is going to be Harlem shaking or whatever the hell you want to call it, dribbling as of late. I mean, the guy's just crab dribbling all over the place. I don't know, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be popcorn. It's going to be everything that we would hope for. And like you said, we're getting it in the second round. We don't have to wait all the way until June. This is a beautiful thing. We might not see this again. So I'm definitely going to try to catch every single game. What about you? What are you paying attention to?
Well, the first thing, and this is just a bummer for me, but East Coast start times with the West Coast games going on, 10:30 Eastern. I'm teaching middle school kids. I got to get to bed, so I'm going to have to catch up on the highlights and do that stuff, or have my kids inform me when I get to school the next day, because those are some late start games. But I'm really looking forward to just Steph versus LeBron. I mean, we've seen it for so many years, and we know LeBron is a top 5 player of all time. We know Steph is in that range of top 10. And I started to just think, when he was dropping 50 the other day, how high can Steph work his way up the pantheon? Because, I mean, you start to think, with 5 rings, if he could get a 5th and then a 6th, it's like, this is territory we haven't seen before from a point guard. Obviously, Magic had his 5, but I'm just sitting there thinking, as Steph's putting up these points, like, he is leveling up, and he's in his mid 30s, and he's looking just as good, if not better, back in the 2015, 16, all that range. And I'm just amazed. So to see those two, I think they're at a different point in their rivalry. I think in those finals, they were going after each other. It was personal, and you could tell back then that they were after each other, and they didn't like each other. And I think they've both grown up a little bit, and it seems like they're on a better level. But when it comes to playoff basketball, all that's gone. It's out the door. And the intensity in California is just going to be incredible. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how those two interact with each other, how their teams respond. I mean, you brought up guys like Austin Reeves. I'm really curious to see how he steps up to the moment, because he had some really good times against Memphis where I thought, man, this dude is balling. Like, I was upset they got rid of Caruso a couple years ago, and then Austin Reeves steps in and he's looking like Caruso 2.0 with a better offensive game. So definitely the role players will play a huge role, and Steph and Clay are going to do their thing, but also the Draymond piece. I mean, we all know Draymond's offensive production has declined over the years, but his defensive tenacity, just what he brings to that team, he's going to get some technicals, he's going to do some dumb stuff, but he's the heart and soul of that team. So, I mean, everything
And
from
the
all
feet,
those years.
apparently.
Exactly. So it's going to be a great series. So I wanted to segue onto the East, because we've given the West some love so far. And the biggest surprise for any non-basketball fans listening or people who are just more casual is the Milwaukee Bucks, and losing in 5 games to the Miami Heat, who are an 8 seed. Milwaukee Bucks, number 1 seed in the East, go down in 5 games. And you have to start with talking about the Giannis Antetokounmpo injury, but kind of tell me what you think after having the best regular season in the East and then going out in 5 games. What did you think of that? Because I know I wasn't expecting it.
Jimmy Butler was buck hunting. I mean, he was. He really put it to him. And absolutely, like you said, Giannis was hurt. It seems like his injury was actually more significant than maybe he would have let on. So, again, credit to him. We know that Giannis is championship DNA. We never doubt that. So if the guy says he's hurt, I take him at his word. But Jimmy Butler put a hurting on the Bucks, every single one of them. I mean, he absolutely put them in a blender, took them to work. I mean, it was just bring a kid to work day. It was just it was absolutely unbelievable. The numbers he was putting up against them, he was just able to get his shots whenever and wherever he wanted. I'm not gonna lie, when they lost Hero early, I really thought that they were cooked. I thought that they were cooked in the play-in when they lost to the Hawks.
And then they were down to Chicago in the second play-in game.
And it's very true. It's very true. And I'm glad that you said that because, I think that the Bucks kind of got a raw deal here. And I'd be curious to hear what your opinion is on this. Now that we are living in this era of play-in tournament, in-season tournament, et cetera, I think that across the league, for the most part, you've had buy-in, it seems, for most of the franchises that this is a good thing. The fans seem to be interested in it. So why would you want to penalize the number 1 seed, the best regular season team, by giving them what, in this case, was not the matchup they would have had? I mean, Miami was the 7 seed, not the 8 seed. Miami lost the first play-in game and found themselves in a do-or-die moment where they had to play the 1 seed. They had no other choice. I think the 1 seed should get to pick their opponent. They should definitely get to pick, in my opinion, because I mean, I think very clearly the Bucks would have preferred to play the Hawks. No disrespect to the city of Atlanta or our man Brad, who is working on his own pod right now for that team in the offseason. I think that's far from a secret, but that's not what they got. They got Jimmy Butler, and the Heat are moving on. And the Heat are a team of gritty guys. Kyle Lowry, Big Booty Lowry, was out there just mucking it up. He was really in the mix on offense and defense in that series, playmaking for them when Jimmy Butler was off the floor, getting all kinds of great defensive stops and just hustle plays that really broke the Bucks back. Miami's gritty. Spolestra is a great coach, and I'm not surprised that they were able to scheme their way past Giannis. This is not the first time that Jimmy Butler and the Heat have taken down Giannis. They're very familiar with him and that team. So Budenholzer's inability to make adjustments late in the game and throughout the series, I think, unfortunately, may end up costing him his job this offseason. So keep an eye on that. And I do just want to say in that same regard, condolences to his family. I know that he was dealing with the loss of his brother during that series, which I can't even imagine. So that's definitely something that I just want to make sure everybody's aware of because, those off-court factors definitely come into play in on-court, the way things play out. So long story short, like I said, the Heat's still burning in Miami. They're moving on to the Big Apple, and I know you're excited about that series.
Hey, speaking of the Big Apple, Stephen A. Smith is so happy his Knicks are in the next round and took care of business with Cleveland, which personally shocked me. But you could tell from game 1 in that Cleveland Knicks series that the Knicks were ready to go. And so not only is Stephen A. happy that his Knicks made it on the second round, he's happy that he gets to go down to Miami and spend some time down in South Beach. So looking forward to that series, although it's 1 game in. Miami's riding this high of win the play-in tournament, beat the Bucks, take game 1 from the Knicks. And it's like, oh my goodness, this 8 seed Hemi Butler led team, as you once proclaimed, David, is just, it's fun. And especially with Tyler Hero out, I was thinking the same thing, like, one of their best scorers, and they're just rolling with it. Different guys are stepping up. Duncan Robinson stepping up one night, Max Strus the next. As you said, Kyle Lowry still kicking. He's one of the top 5 oldest players in the league right now, with LeBron, Chris Paul, and a few others. I was just looking that up the other day. So that Knicks Heat series is not what anybody expected, but we're here and the Heat took game one. So bring me through a little bit of what's going on because I think that's going to be a good series. And I've loved what the Knicks have done, but they definitely look shaky dropping that first game in Madison Square Garden yesterday. So how do you see that series shaking out? And do you overreact to game one? I know people love to overreact when a team loses, but for me personally, I'm not overreacting to the game one loss for the Knicks.
No, I'm not either. And I'm not for two reasons. The main reason being that we don't know if Jimmy Butler's going to play game two. Depending on the injury and the significance of that, and for those who don't know, Jimmy Butler rolled his ankle late in the game, was able to stay in the game, but was basically just out there like a mannequin. I mean, the dude couldn't even really move. That's how much heart this guy has. And that's why I think a lot of us, really love him the way that we do. Um, but if he's unable to go, the Heat are already very shorthanded as it is, with the loss of Hero. So I don't know what that's going to look like in the Garden without your best player. And the other reason why I'm not overreacting to the Knicks loss is because Julius Randle didn't play. And depending on the night, Julius Randle is their best player or their best player B. Him and Jalen Brunson rotate. Um, I think Julius Randle makes a big difference in the series with his physicality, with his ability to stretch the defense because he is able to hit perimeter shots. I don't necessarily love Julius Randle shooting perimeter shots, but he can make them sometimes. So I think that they sorely missed him. Obi Toppin looked good for them, and what he was able to do. But I mean, Julius Randle is an all NBA player. Like he's an all star. And Jalen Brunson is awesome, but he's neither one of those. I don't think he's going to be an all NBA player this year, and he was not an all star. Now, that's not saying he never will be because the dude is absolutely balling. And this is not the first time that he went out there and took Donovan Mitchell's lunch money in the playoffs. So Dallas Mavericks, I think you messed that one up, but that's for another podcast. But yeah, New York, I mean, the city is alive. Basketball's back in the Mecca. And it's difficult to win games there. It is. Like you saw what happened in Cleveland. They were not ready for that moment. They look like deers in the headlights. So Miami's going to need to come back, and they're going to get if they can get two in the Garden, that's when you worry. That's when you worry if you're the Knicks, because then going down to Miami with everything that comes with being in Miami, as I'm sure Stephen A. is really looking forward to, as you alluded to. It can be difficult to go down there and win games. And again, coaching on both sides, I think, is pretty comparable. Really great coaches. Everybody knows what they bring to the table. So it's going to be a fun series. It's going to be a dog fight. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but KD, don't you wish you would have came to the Knicks? Don't you wish you would have came to the Knicks? Oh my God. Oh my God. Can we get that guy at every game? That guy's amazing.
Yeah, I want to get to KD here in a second. One thing that stood out to me, just kind of a random side note on that Knicks game, is all the celebrities in the house. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers,
Man.
you got Spike Lee, you got Chris Rock, you got Jack Harlow dropped a new album. Not a huge fan, and you just got everyone in the house. So
Gang, 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 gang.
to be in there is got to be incredible. So really looking forward to that series, and I think it could go either way. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Heat move on, which leads me to think that the Celtics are licking their chops right now. And I know they're up on the Sixers. Game one's going on right now, and if you're a Celtics fan, you just got to be thinking this is our time. Like you look at the other side of the bracket, you look at Embiid out for the Sixers right now, and you're thinking, hey, this has got to be our year. We avoided the Bucks, and there should be nothing stopping us. So let's stick in the East, and then we can end in the West. So as I alluded to, Celtics are up on the Sixers right now. I like the Celtics in that series with Embiid out, with the Heat, and with the Knicks. I mean, whoever wins that Celtics, you got to be confident you're taking the East this year. So what do you see on that Celtics Sixers side? Do you see the Sixers having any chance with a hobbled Embiid, and what do you like to advance on?
Man, I think Embiid's going to get some good news this week, but it's also sounding like he could get some really bad news. And I think the good news is going to come for him tomorrow when he wins MVP. Um, I think the bad news might be that he's going to miss more than just game one. And I just don't see the 76ers being able to get it done without Embiid. Now, Embiid, even on one leg, is a problem. He's a problem for Al Horford. He's a problem for Robert Williams, and he is damn sure a problem for Grant Williams. I don't know. That guy just continues to disappoint me. Um, but he's got to get it back out there. And Embiid, unfortunately, this is his history in the postseason. He has a history of obscure injury that cuts their season short. There's a lot on the line for the 76ers this year. A lot on the line. Harden is about to become a free agent. Is he coming back? I don't know. Maybe he's going to go down to Houston with Ime Udoka. Seems like they got some of the same off-court behaviors and interests. I don't know. We're going to see. But that's a real question. And the other question is, how many times is Embiid going to suit up for the Sixers and flame out in the postseason before he wants to go somewhere else? I found it very interesting when they asked Jimmy Butler after he killed the Bucks, what he thought about the MVP chance. And you know what his answer was? His answer was, oh, the MVP, that's the big man in Philly. That's Joel. And I think everybody in the city of Philadelphia heard that soundbite and another crack formed in the Liberty Bell, okay? Because this is warning time. Consider yourself warned. Like, we know what Miami will do. We know the allure. And we know that the 76ers should have held on to Jimmy Butler instead of Tobias Harris. That was a mistake. So Philly has a lot to lose. Boston, you were just in the finals. In my personal opinion, I'm not sold on them. They really struggle with the Hawks. But you were just in the finals. The ceiling for you, I don't want to say it's not as high because you've done it already, quote unquote. So you're just trying to get back there, but it's just a different kind of hunt. And then there's also the big question about if Jaylen Brown's happy there. I can't really tell. It really just depends on the night. I just something's going on in Boston, and I got to get that. They got to get that figured out. I think that they can easily beat the 76ers without Embiid. So we know what Harden looks like in the postseason, and unfortunately, he is the definition of a no-show. I don't think that's going to change. I just really don't. So truthfully, whoever comes out of that series, unless Embiid is 100%, they should not feel confident that they can win the conference, in my opinion. Because whether you're going into New York or you're going into Miami, you got to be able to go into those environments and win games. And those are difficult places to win on the road. They really are.
I would agree with that 100%. The Celtics, to me, feel like we've been watching Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in the playoffs for the last 5 years. I mean, ever since Tatum's rookie year when he dunked on LeBron in that playoff game, we got put on notice. Like, he is here, he's ready to go. You'd think with all that playoff experience that tandem has had, that they're ready to make that leap to win it all. So I was shocked to see the Hawks give them trouble. And I know you're pretty tapped into the Hawks with what Brad does. And I just didn't see that happening. It's like they kind of just let them hang around. And so I could see concern for Boston, but the road just looks easier than it has been, in my opinion. So I like the Celtics to get back to the finals, but who they see in the West is up for debate, which is why I wanted to jump back to the West, talk about KD a little bit, talk about these Nuggets, who, in my opinion, have looked like the best team in the NBA. And obviously, we think Jokic isn't going to win his third straight MVP, but he's playing like it, and he makes everybody better. I mean, Aaron Gordon is looking like a monster. We know what Murray does. If they can get MPJ going, I mean, people have been sleeping on the Nuggets despite getting the number 1 seed, and for them to take Phoenix out in game 1 didn't surprise me. I mean, you gotta think about having home court advantage. They talk about the altitude in Denver that I'm sure plays a small role, and the Suns just didn't look great. I'm not overreacting to that game, but we know the offensive firepower that Phoenix has. And I know you're a huge KD guy, David. So give me your take on the Suns, the Nuggets, and what's going on there, because the Nuggets have looked great. And I know the Timberwolves aren't a great first round team to compare it to, but still, I love what's going out in Denver.
Cal, I mean, yeah, you said it. I'm a KD guy. That's my guy. That's my dog. Every time he hoops for me, it is a spiritual experience, as he put it. but the math ain't mathing against Denver. I mean, they're the number one seed for a reason. Jokic is absolutely insane. And people keep calling him Bubble Murray, but you need to call him Mr. Murray, okay? Because that dude is prime time, big time, whatever you want to say. It's time. And he is a baller. And that's the really dangerous part about the Denver Nuggets. You know, they can build their whole offense around Jokic and his selfishness. Um, and when teams try to collapse on him and make it difficult for him, then they can just go into pick and roll with him and Jamal Murray and put teams in really compromised positions where they have to decide which poison pill they want to bite down on. And Jamal Murray was really just putting in work game one. I mean, you saw how talented he is offensively, and I mean, again, he's a Kentucky guy. So, you know, I've been knew this. I've been knew this. But the Nuggets are deep. They are deep, and the Suns are not. That's a big issue for the Suns. You know, some people may think it's a good thing that Monty Williams is, you know, constantly inserting new guys into the lineup. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that he is trying to figure out a solution, and he doesn't have one. Um, so I don't know. Like the KD thing, I still think Phoenix is a year away, in my personal opinion. You know, Denver, they're so talented. They've been down this road before, and there's a lot of pressure on them to, you know, succeed in the postseason. They've kind of flamed out in the past. So I just really don't know if KD and Book are going to be able to get it done against this team. They're going to make Chris Paul make shots, which I don't necessarily know if I trust. DeAndre Ayton, could you get a rebound instead of watching Jokic tip the ball in 15 times? Like, and that's why he's not going to be there next season. Anyways, in the land of the sun, I think the Suns and Foe guy is probably drunk somewhere on his couch because they definitely ain't getting it done in Foe, and they might not get it done at all. So they're going to really need to show me something tonight in game two. The role players are going to have to hit big shots. And like I said, and like you said, Jokic may not win his third MVP, but he sure as hell playing like one. He sure is. So they got to be ready for it. They got to.
And I think a common mistake was by the average eye, KD gets traded to Phoenix. Oh, seal the deal. That's a championship. You add the best plug and play player of all time, maybe the greatest scorer of all time to that team that's already been to the finals. That's a championship. Well, I think what people fail to realize is chemistry means more than you think. And yes, they didn't lose a game with KD in the regular season. I think it was 8-0 they went. They were playing inferior teams, and
Yep.
it's going to take some time. And I like your theory about a year away. I wouldn't be surprised if they figured it out in the series. KD's just that talented and that good. But I think it goes to show that you do need some time with guys to know where to put spots at, where guys are going to be at, just that, like that chemistry that the Warriors have. I mean, Draymond knows where Clay and Steph are going to be. They've been doing it for so long, and it wouldn't surprise me if it took the Suns a year and then next year maybe they go in as maybe the favorite. So would love to see the Nuggets go all the way. And I think one thing that was glaring to me was the post-game interview with Jamal Murray with the TNT crew. He had a chip on his shoulder in that interview, and they were saying, as you said, they said, "Are you Bubble Murray or are you healthy Murray?" And he said, "I'm healthy Murray. They need to get this bubble reputation off my name." Like he balled out in the bubble and people only know him for that, but he's been hurt since. So he kind of wasn't even looking at the camera. It was kind of like this. I got this sense like, you know, these guys are doubting me a little bit, and I'm gonna take it to the world. And I kind of liked his mentality in that interview. I'm not sure if you're able to catch it, but it
Oh
was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing with a chip on his shoulder as he should. You know, people counted him out due to unfortunate injuries. They counted out the Nuggets, you know, due to Jokic's lack of, you know, his best options around him not being there. Um, and, you know, all credit to the Nuggets. They've come a long way. They've continued to add pieces around him. Shout out to KCP. That was a big addition. Shout out to Bruce Brown, another big addition. Aaron Gordon has stepped up a lot. I personally think he should have been an all-star this year. Um, there may be people who don't, but I think that he definitely should have been. And Denver as an organization has just done a really good job. A lot of these guys, you know, weren't necessarily big names coming out of the draft. I mean, Jokic was, God, a late first rounder, like late, like we're talking like 20s. Okay, people like he was just the definition of a diamond in the rough. So they've done a great job, and I think that this could be the season where they finally break through that glass ceiling and get back to the Western Conference Finals. Who they're going to see remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. And that'll wrap up our NBA talk. We'll jump to something else here to quickly end it, but we're hoping to get back with David here maybe in a week, 2 weeks as the playoffs shake out. But it was great hearing from you, David. And I got one last thing for you. I want to end my podcast always on something on your mind, something you've been doing, something going on in your life or whoever. So I'll share with you one thing, because I had some students come up to me the other day like, Mr. Denicky, you're on the podcast. And I said, what? They said, we found your podcast. And I was like, oh, here we go. They're like, how do I get on? How do I get on? And I was like, hey man, like you're in 8th grade. We'll wait till you get out of my class, and then we'll see what we can do. But my flag football team that I'm coaching at the middle school is 7-0 right now. We've started off very well. So I wanted to give those boys a shout out. We got one regular season game left before the playoffs. So looking to do big things. And that's kind of my one shout out today. So if you got a shout out for anybody, or just want to inform our listeners of what's going on in St. Louis, what's going on with your life, just to give us some flavor outside of the NBA talk.
Yeah, man, that's big time for your flag football team. I'll be rooting for you guys, so definitely keep me in the loop. Big rings and big teams down there in Florida, as always. Never expect anything less. Uh, but man, I guess I'm gonna give a shout out to our third man, our sixth man, Brad Harden, who is not with us today on the pod because he is currently recording on behalf of the Atlanta Hawks for the show that he does. So definitely check that out. He's going to be covering their off season and everything that's coming next for them. Will Trae Young be there? Who knows? His hair definitely won't, but you should still listen. Like, it's going to be interesting to hear what Brad has to say. So also want to give a shout out to my sister. She may never see this. I hope that she doesn't, because she hates when I talk about her, but she has just been traveling all around the world ever since she graduated college. She's actually about to move to Japan soon. And I'm just so proud of how much stuff she's been doing. She's doing a lot of great stuff, and she should post on Instagram more so I know that she's alive. So, Brie, if you hear this, please post on Instagram more so I know that you're alive. Okay. Thank you very much. And my last shout out of the day is going to go to the man I'm sitting next to. And I'm not talking about Denzel. I'm not talking about Woody or Wesley. And I definitely ain't talking about Mike. I'm talking about Cal. Cal, it's always a pleasure to hop on the pod with you, man. It's always great catching up with you, hearing what you got cooking, what you got going on, and just generally getting to hear your voice, because it is just such a wonderful voice. It really is. So whenever you need me back on this pod, talk b-ball, whatever else, I'm here. And soon, hopefully, I'll be in Florida and we can do a live show together. We'll be on the beaches of St. Petersburg. I'll be in an all white suit like Stephen A. And I'll just be screaming and yelling, and people will love it or they'll hate it. But you're going to have to tune in to see.
All right. I appreciate that shout out, Dave. Have a good night, and so long for Conversations with Cal.